早晨各位。
Good morning, members. We have already formed a quorum. It is also time to start. So please invite the administration's team to join us.
我哋議程第一項呢，就係
Item 1 on the agenda. Mr. TANG Ka-piu and Mr. Wai-keung had co-signed a letter and that's in relation to the issue of application of the 2014 to 2015 civil service pay adjustment to non-civil service contract staff and subvented sector staff. We have sort of briefly talked to the Secretary on this matter. It is suggested that we can take it up next time. Mr. Tang, in our December meeting, will be considering your proposal. The next one is that Mr. Wong Kwok-hing has also written in to talk about the manpower situation, etc., of government lifeguards. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen at our last meeting also mentioned this. The Secretary for Civil Service would like to take up this matter when we deal with the mechanism for conducting a great structures review this year. So I think you must have received copies of such letters. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the great structural review for lifeguards, I agree with what you have arranged with the administration. Well, in this case, we turn to items for discussion at the next meeting. For our next meeting, we'd like to hold it at 10:45 a.m. on the 15th of December, a Monday. The administration has suggested 2 items. First, employment situation of non-civil service contract staff. The other is the review on the conditioned hours of work for model scale 1 grades. So members, if you consent, then we will have such items for our next meeting. No comments? All right, thank you. Now that takes us to the 3rd item on the agenda, which is commendation schemes for civil service. We've got a paper from the administration. I'll give the floor to the Secretary, and then when I open the floor to members for questions and answers, there will be 5 minutes for each member. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. Let me be brief in walking you through the paper. First of all, we are committed to upholding high standards of performance and conduct in civil service. We hope that they will be dedicated and effective, and they will provide quality service to the community of Hong Kong. So we have set out a number of schemes, and they are for the purpose of motivating the civil servants to perform well. First of all, the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award, held once every 2 years, and we try to promote an excellent service culture, a customer-focused culture in the civil service. We want to recognize the efforts of departments and teams. We've already written to the relevant bureaus and departments to encourage the active participation. We have the following awards: Interdepartmental Partnership Award, Departmental Awards, and Team Awards. And we would like to have a special arrangement. That is, we hope that departments will be very proactive in responding to customer needs. So there will be special citations on such. And we would like to have the community's input, and we will be inviting 30 individuals who are well-versed in management issues to join us at the first stage of our adjudication. And then in the second stage, we will be having members of the LegCo, District Council, representatives from professional organizations, staff side members of the Central Consultative Councils, and senior officials from the CSB to form the final adjudication panels. For the Best Public Image Award, we'll have a sample of randomly selected members of the general public, about 2,400 of them, and all members of the LegCo and District Councils. They will be invited to vote in the survey, and then the top 3 departments will be awarded with the gold, silver, and bronze prizes respectively. 30 bureaus and departments will be sort of finalized. We want to arrange for a series of publicity activities to give recognition to the outstanding achievements of the winning departments and teams. There are also commendation schemes. First of all, the Hong Kong SAR Honours and Awards System. This is not confined to civil servants. For the past 5 years, on average, 120 civil servants received awards under the system. And then 50 also received various disciplined services awards. And then we have got 2 other schemes especially for civil servants. First of all, the Secretary for the Civil Service Commendation Award Scheme, as well as the Commendation Letter Scheme, arranged and administered at the bureau or departmental level. They will be given a certificate of recognition and a gold pin if they have 20 or more years of service and they have not enjoyed a travel award. They will also be given such an award. For those who are married, the recipient will also be allowed to invite the spouse to join. And then for the commendation letter scheme, bureaus and departments will administer this scheme. This is to give recognition to good performance, and we want to motivate and incentivize the civil servants so that they can seek for further excellence. We'll continue to make use of this scheme. I would like to pause here, and then myself and my colleagues will be happy to take questions from members. As I have said, 5 minutes each for Q&A. I would like to read out the list of members. Wong Kwok-hing, Tang Ka-piu, and then Emily Lau, and then Tam Yu Chung, in that order. First of all, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for this paper, I strongly support the paper. This is because at the front line, for civil servants, if they perform well and if they get public recognition and trust, I think it is but right to give them an award. Now, I've got 2 questions for the Secretary. First of all, we have seen that for the past 50 days, we have seen for ourselves the damage and nuisance caused to the community of Hong Kong by the Occupy movement. It is unlawful and it has brought about a lot of unease. I've seen that in the process for the frontline police officers, other members of the disciplinary services, they've been very dedicated to their duties and they've been discharging their duties without any grievance. And in all sorts of scenarios, they have been very persistent in discharging their duties. In particular, the police force have got the trust of the public. Otherwise, we would not have 1.84 million members putting down their signatures to support and cheer on the police force. And then other sectors of the community have also resorted to their own ways to send their regards to the police headquarters, like sending a card, a thank you card, or sending some gifts to the police officers. My question is, for the 17 years since the handover, I think this one is the most political event. The police force have performed very well. Have you considered any methods to give recognition to the frontline police officers because they have performed very well? This is my first question. Second question is, now we know that among the 100,000 plus civil servants, quite a lot of them, almost 10% of them, are non-civil service contract staff. In fact, they have always been diligent, loyal, and hardworking. No, they are not civil servants, but although they are contract staff, non-civil service contract staff, but then their performance is comparable to their civil servant counterparts. So my question is, in the past, your award and commendation schemes, I think you've overlooked such a non-civil service staff. Would you start to consider covering them as well? Thank you. For the Occupy Central movement, I agree with Mr. Wong. That is, our police force have been performing very well, and I'm sure they have the support of the majority of the members of the public. A few points to make here. Well, for the management, that is for the management of the police force, they will make the appropriate manpower deployment exercises so as to ease the burden on and pressure on the frontline staff. I think the S4S, the CS, myself, on different occasions have also tried to encourage the police officers, try to boost their morale. And in today's papers, I think you must have read that they were not able to take leave during this period of time, so we have to make special arrangements to allow them to accumulate more leave that days that haven't been taken, because they're just not able to take leave over this period of time. So we have to be flexible about the leave accumulated. I'm sure the police force will make proper arrangements to make sure that the good performance, whether it is due to the Occupy movement or due to other events, proper arrangements will be made. In the case of the NCSC staff, just now we have talked about the various schemes, and if we have non-civil service staff members taking part, the bureaus or the departments or the teams will still be awarded. But then, of course, the award is being given on the basis of a team. For the other commendation award scheme, like the SCS commendation award scheme, usually we are targeting at the long-serving officers. On average, the awardees have had over 20 years of service. For the NCSC staff, they are not permanent staff. They don't work on a long-term basis. But of course, if non-civil service contract staff members are performing very well, I'm sure there are proper ways to give recognition.
We would like to keep the time to within 5 minutes, so I apologize. Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Thank you, Chairman. As the member pointed out, in the past month or so, there was a tense atmosphere in our society. I believe that Occupy Central has antagonized the confrontational sentiments between the general public or the protesters and the police. Today you're here to talk about boosting morale of the civil service. In the past month or so, has there been any difference in the figures when it comes to the complaint against civil servants in terms of policy, in terms implementation and service performance? when it comes to the police, some people ask them to enforce the law, whereas others ask them not to. So they are put in a dilemma, and there is also the non-cooperation movement. We see that for the medium and high rank civil servants, sometimes they are at a loss because there has been efforts to delay their work, and sometimes they have to work overtime, and at other times it seems that their efforts are fruitless. So what do you do in this regard? Secretary, when it comes to complaints against civil servants, I don't have the actual figure, but my recollection is that there hasn't been any change apart from complaints lodged with the IPCC. I believe that the general public still recognize the work of the civil service in high regard. And when it comes to working long times or their work has been fruitless, I believe that our staff members will be dedicated as usual and do their best. And we will do our best to answer your questions. And we hope that members, you will, as fast as you can, endorse proposals, because some of them are related to livelihood issues. We've spoken to some high-ranking officials, and we know that they will still perform their work as usual. Ms. Emily Lau. Secretary, you must know that Hong Kong is now faced with an unprecedented mass movement, and social fabric has been torn to an extent that has never been seen before. And if civil servants are caught in it, it is most regrettable. We hope that this political issue will be resolved with determination by those who have the ability to resolve the issue. You can't pass the buck to the civil service, to the civil servants or the police, because it is simply beyond what they can do. Of course, if civil servants perform well, they should be recognized. And if they have underperformed, there should be due criticism. And the most important thing is not to affect their morale. Given the current political difficulties, some civil servants are no longer politically neutral, and they, as a result, may not be able to perform their jobs as efficiently as they did before, and this in turn will affect the confidence of the public. Have you heard anything about this? Has anyone spoken to you about the frustration they have encountered? Because sometimes they are just simply used as scapegoats. First of all, is one of our core values to be politically neutral. I believe that the civil service is not affected. When it comes to political neutrality, it means we have the responsibility to implement the policies of the current government. And when it comes to political issues, of course, it will be for the political team to handle. Civil servants understand that the work will be more difficult if there are political difficulties. And they also understand that sometimes it is inevitable that they encounter implementation difficulties, and they will be politically neutral. They have the responsibility to implement the work, and it's not a matter of showing your political stance. The most important thing is that they will stick to the political neutrality and perform their work. Chairman, the Secretary said that they are politically neutral and that they will professionally implement government policies. But in a situation when political when policies are lopsided and when there is imbalance in society, how can the civil servants perform their jobs? Well, if the policies are completely lopsided, then civil servants will encounter difficulties. Is it the case that since the policies are lopsided, then resources will be given to those favored by the government? But when it comes to contracts awarded and consultancy contracts, you know that there is a fair mechanism in place. I was talking about the appointments to different bodies. They are appointed by the chief executive, and it's for the chief executive to make the final decision. Civil servants may give their views, make recommendations to suitable candidates. The final decision is rested with the chief executive. Yes, but the problem is that there is an imbalance and there is a friend or foe mentality in the current government. So what are civil servants supposed to do? Whoever are appointed, the civil servants will do their job as usual, and if there is a need to give explanation, they will be given. Mr. Tam Yu-chung, I think it's sometimes dangerous to say certain things. Talking about getting civil servants to implement lopsided policies. Does it mean that civil servants will have the choice to decide when to implement what policy? It's very dangerous if that is the case. There is high transparency in our civil service, and there are rules and procedures in place. Civil servants are there to implement the law as well and legislation. So if they can exercise their discretion and put in their judgment, then it will be dangerous. And there is a group of legislators who said that they will mount an uncorporation movement and they will filibuster. And it's been many months, and still civil service pay rise is not discussed. Has there been any views from the civil service in this regard? I thank the member for the question. Well, Mr. Tam was right. Civil servants have the responsibility to support the Hong Kong SARG's work. It's the responsibility of the civil service to support government policies and implement them. Individual civil servants having their own view is not related, because as a whole it's the responsibility of civil servants to support government policies and to implement them regardless of their political inclination. And as I said, that is not civil servants who make the appointments. The most important thing is that the team appointed by the chief executive will get the support of civil servants. When it comes to statutory bodies, civil servants will work closely with them. Of course, civil servants are very concerned about the pay rise. We have the retrospective mechanism dating it back to the 1st of April. But that doesn't mean that the civil servants will not worry. Of course, they would like to see the endorsement as soon as possible. If it can't be done within this financial year, then there will be big problems. And when it comes to subvented organizations, not all of them have the retrospective mechanism. In short, in reply to Mr. Tam's question, civil servants are concerned. We've explained to them. There are a lot of proposals in the backlog, and a lot of them are related to livelihood issues. Say, for example, the incinerator and the 3 landfill. And there is also the low-income subsidy. They are before the civil servants' pay rise, so they understand. The most important thing is legislators will deal with these items as soon as possible. I thank the civil servants for being so understanding. I'd like to draw your attention to this. We've read in the press that some civil servants have taken sick leave to participate in the Occupy movement, and they themselves became marshals to protect certain celebrities, and I hope that you will pay attention to this. If we receive complaints about individual servants, we will follow it up seriously. Next, Mr. Leung Chi-chung. Indeed, these commendation schemes and award schemes will boost the morale of the civil servants. In the past, I've been in these panels. And I've learned a thing or two about the service of civil servants. Well, will this boost morale? Maybe not completely, because there are other factors in play, say, for example, benefits and pay. It's a difficult time for civil servants because they have to deliver great results. And they are under pressure from different political parties or members of the public. And I know some civil servants who would like to retire and they're not yet 50. I hope, Secretary, you will pay attention to this, that civil servants would like to retire early. Current political pressure affects the civil servants greatly. Some of them took out an advertisement in newspapers to express a support of the Occupy movement, and there are some civil servants who wear yellow ribbons to work. Well, if it's your office hour, if it's your work time, and you wear a yellow ribbon, well, for those who don't support the Occupy movement, how do you suppose they feel? Do you have any guidelines in place when it comes to what civil servants can do during office hours? You said that they are supposed to be politically neutral, but if you wear a yellow ribbon, and then it's no longer politically neutral.
Secretary, thank you, Chairman. In relation to being politically neutral, we have got guidelines and we have to strike a balance. Civil servants are politically neutral, but of course civil servants, like any other citizens in Hong Kong, they have the right to express their views, their conviction, etc. So we don't ask for everybody to be sharing the views of the administration. But then this mustn't be allowed to affect the work that he carries out. He must be impartial. He mustn't give people the impression that he will be biased. So this is important. Moreover, if the showing of political stance is contrary to the departmental policy, then it would be serious. So we do have guidelines here for individual cases. If necessary, of course, we'll remind the departments and bureaus, and they should explain the matter to their colleagues. In any event, if an individual has got any views on a particular matter, as long as it should not affect the service provided to the public. Yes, I understand. Yes, you just take orders, you do what your boss tells you to do. Now, for citizens to come across civil servants who are showing some political stance, then we don't feel good. Say, if I go to a public hospital, I'm against the Occupy movement. If I meet come across a health officer who is in support, then I don't feel easy. So I'm emphasizing that during the duty hours, I find it odd. I don't care what they do after hours. Now, if I'm against the Occupy movement while the civil servant serving me is in support, then there is a clash. I think your time is up. Next one to speak, Mr. Tony Chair, 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award and other commendation schemes, of course I support. I do take part in such exercises. I think you can say that for the teams and individuals, bureaus and departments, it is a way to give recognition to their excellent service. According to the paper, it is said that the winning departments will be invited to share their experience. I just want to say that they can set themselves as an example for other individual civil servants, departments and bureaus, and then the standards of the civil service can be raised, and this can motivate the civil servants. So I just want to say that please carry on, and it is important to share the experience. So this will have a sort of effect to encourage others to follow suit. For the award schemes, I think they are being held regularly. But then, Chairman, our civil servants are faced with many and more problems, and some of them are sort of unexpected. Say, for example, in the legislature, certain members are filibustering, or they're having the non-cooperation movement. This will increase the pressure on the civil servants because they can't tell when their plans can be implemented. And then even for tender exercises, sometimes the validity period will expire, and it means that civil servants have to do it afresh. I can tell from my experience. Now, the bidders will find it difficult to plan, and then for the civil servants, I think it will have a negative impact on the workload, on the morale. So in such cases, I want to know if the Bureau will do anything to motivate the civil servants and to make sure that the relevant bureaus or departments will not become less positive, because we're talking about something which is ad hoc, something which is unexpected, and I am afraid that the regular award schemes may not be able to cover such a scenario. Secretary, 2 points here. First of all, difficulties that civil servants face during the course of work. Well, there are 2 points here. First of all, for tendering exercises, of course, it's up to departments to find ways to see how civil servants can maintain their morale. They won't lose heart even if a tender exercise has failed. I'm sure the heads of department can explain the matter to their colleagues. For professional officers, we'll try to enhance the training so as to make sure that they're psychologically prepared. Understand that sometimes when our officers go to district councils, for example, to explain their work, when they talk about livelihood issues, sometimes they find it difficult to handle the more political perspective. So they have to be given more training in sort of fine-tuning their communication skills. Now, sometimes the administration can't really control the pace of our work, and therefore we need to adjust our mindset, and we have to be aware of the so-called complaint culture. Yes, sometimes there will still be frivolous complaints, so we have to make sure that we are sort of ready for such complaints. Through the RTHK, we'll be producing programs, and we've also talked to departments. Maybe through the secondary school curriculum, we can explain the work of civil service to the public. Any other questions on this topic? Mr. Kwok? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems that the mic is not working. Yes, it is working now. Thank you, Chair. The question for the SCS. For the award and other commendation schemes, I think we all support the idea. Now, civil servants are working under huge pressure. We want to award the good performing civil servants, especially those who have been serving for a long time. Now, for the civil service pay rise, this is being blocked for the time being because of the filibustering. We don't know when it will be implemented. Some civil servants have asked this question: if it is to be deferred by more than a year, even though there can be a dating back arrangement, there is still a dent in their purchasing power. I want to know whether this happened in the past and whether there is a mechanism to make up for the loss in purchasing power. And another point is in relation to paragraph 12. It is said that the winning departments and bureaus will have the exemplary performance being covered on TV and supplements in newspapers, etc. I want to know about the work done in the past 3 years. Is it effective? Are you able to project a quality image of the civil service to the public so as to encourage the civil servants? Secretary, I'll take the second point, and then my colleagues can also supplement the other points. On the question about purchasing power, I think this has never happened before. I think civil servants always get their pay adjustments in summer, so we haven't considered, we haven't studied the possibility of such a scenario. We do hope that it will be endorsed ASAP. In fact, we have already started work for the pay adjustment next year. If we have a pay adjustment next year, we would also come back. I just want to clarify certain worries. Someone is worried that whether if we can't get it done in time, whether the money will be lost, the pay rise will be lost. That won't be the case. The money has already been set aside, but then we need the approval of the FC. Now, on the question of purchasing power, I think I'll give a brief answer. We don't just look at purchasing power, we look at many other factors as well. But still, every year we will continue with the survey. We know the picture for 2014. In 2015, we'll also have another survey, and if necessary, on the basis of the figures, I will also give a pay rise or pay adjustment. P.S. For the follow-up work in relation to the awards, we have done this in the past, and mainly speaking, we have a special program produced by the RTHK to be broadcast during prime time, and I think the rating is good. The purpose is as follows. For the innovative service of the departments and for service of interest to the public, we would like to showcase them to the public so that they become more interested, and also the unsung heroes can have their achievements understood by the public. I think it is a worthwhile effort, and we will continue to do so. Other than showing, airing a TV program and having supplements in newspapers, we have also made arrangements to give talks in schools and social organizations. I understand that many schools welcome such talks and visits. That is, we go to schools and we go among the students and we tell them about the innovative service provided by the government. All right. Second round. Ms. Emily Long, 3 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the civil service pay rise, we have already told the administration that is for some FC items that are less controversial, we have suggested to the administration to advance them so that they can be dealt with early. This is one of the items that I referred to. Civil servants also welcome such a move. And then for the subvented organization staff, they are worried that they may be getting less pay. The public cannot understand why the administration won't advance the so-called easier items. And this is not the only one. As the Secretary had said, there is also this item about the low-income family supplement. For the 3 landfill extensions and incinerator, it is very controversial. We try to ask the administration to solve the problem first before coming back to the electrical. The administration won't solve the political issues. Rather, it would just allow the less controversial items to be blocked and queue up behind the controversial items. Even the pro-establishment camp, the chair, would also agree with us. So SCS, please go back and discuss the matter with your colleagues. We do hope that this item can come back to the FC for a voting ASAP.
As I explained just now, the incinerator and the landfill proposal is very important for Hong Kong's development, and it is controversial, yet we hope that this item will be dealt with as swiftly as possible so that we can deal with other items. Well, that's what I was asking. Why do you always propose something controversial instead of just talking to the public, just find consensus and deal with the controversy before you put forward the item? It's impossible to have everything resolved and so that none is controversial. It may be controversial and we still have to do it. If we leave it aside simply because it's controversial, then we will never be able to move forward with something that may benefit us in the long run. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing 3 minutes, and then Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan 5 minutes because it's his first round. I object to what Miss Emily Lau said because she put the blame on the administration and the loyalists when it comes to the delayed pay rise to civil servants and contract staff and subvented organization. It's because of the pandemocrats. They hurt the people. They hijack the administration at the expense of the welfare of the general public. When it comes to these, a lot of proposals is submitted to the Finance Committee after detailed discussion. But now the pandemocrats, they hurt the people. They hijack the administration. And they are just putting the obstructions from Causeway Bay, Mong Kok, and Admiralty to this council. Last year there was the filibustering, and it continues this year. So is the devil rebuking sin. That's what Emily Lau is doing, and we are very unhappy. And I think they should shoulder the responsibility of the delay and shoulder all the losses. The administration has already said that about $1 billion has been wasted because of the delay. And if there is a further delay with the incinerator and the landfills, project cost will continue to climb. And it's not just this project. There are many other projects that are related to the livelihood of people that project costs will also climb. I think the pandemocrats should not shift the blame. They obstruct these projects. You're putting yourself at the opposing side of the public. You are the enemy of the people. Civil servants should have seen their pay a long time ago, and they are now still waiting. Contract staff and staff in subvented organizations should have seen their pay rise dated back to by now, and it is dated back to the 1st of April. You should shoulder the responsibility of obstructing the operation of the council and for hurting people. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan, I think Wong Kwok-hing is very skilled in saying black is white. He now said that pandemocrats are using civil servants and the people as pawns to get the administration to do or not to do certain things. But we're talking about projects that shouldn't have been proposed in the first place because a lot of them are white elephant projects. Well, you say that project cost will climb if there is further delay. If you do not build it in the first place, or if you do not propose to build it in the first place, then project cost will not climb. And Mr. Wong Kwok-hing has ignored it conveniently all that and said that we're here to help the people. That is because of us that civil servants don't receive their pay rise. Well, then why don't you get the administration to do something? It's actually the administration that are the kidnappers. We are the gatekeepers, and yet you put the blame on us. You have to make it clear who has power. The administration has the power to change the order of the items. the administration has the power to do something, but they sit on their hands, and instead you blame the people who don't have the power. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing was misleading. It's about the NCSC. Over the years, we've been asking the administration about this thing. Well, does it mean that when civil servants see a pay rise, say for example 4%, then a contract staff will have pay rise and 4%? And the secretary said that they are not related. So on the 1st of April, civil servants will see a pay rise. We asked whether contract staff will see the same pay rise at the same time. The secretary said they are not related. They are not related. So I want the secretary to clarify about the pay rise mechanism of contract staff, whether they will have the pay rise dated back to the 1st of April and at the same rate. If not, is it for the department head to decide when they will have their pay rise, say for example starting from August or starting from October? I've asked this question before, and I think it boils down to wages in arrears. We know that there should be a pay rise, and so far nothing happened. So it's the administration that is at fault here. We're talking about wage in arrears. And I've already said that if you put forward this civil servants pay rise item to the 1st, then immediately civil servants will see a pay rise. And if it waits till next year, then they will not see a pay rise for the entire year. Well, I think you need to clarify. I think for contract staff, they can see the pay rise immediately. I would like to respond to Mr. Lee's questions. I do not agree with what he said. As we've explained, the administration should consider the overall picture. Well, apart from civil servants, there are more important items, say for example low-income subsidy, and the administration should not put controversial items to the back burner simply because there is controversy. It can be put to a vote so that it can be approved or rejected instead of it being held up. And when it comes to pay rise, we need the endorsement of the LegCo before it can be implemented. And about contract staff, I have clarified just now. Well, perhaps Mr. Lee wasn't here yet. I have clarified that when it comes to pay rise, it's not the case that the pay rise will disappear because the year has passed. So it will not lapse. And about NCSCs, then pay rise mechanism is a decision of individual departments, so it's not related to this pay rise. That's why I said that Wong Kwok-hing misled us, because he said that the contract staff will not see pay rise as a result. Perhaps this can be further discussed in the next item. We still have Mr. Tam Yu Chung for this item. And after he's finished, we can move on to the second item, to the next item. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing says something that is a fact. And I think Lee Cheuk-yen talked about the government has committed a payment in arrears, and that is him distorting the facts. The reason why there is a backlog is because pan-democrats has obstructed the discussion, and that's why there is a huge backlog. Lee Cheuk-yen said that the incinerator and the landfills, these are projects that should not have happened in the first place, and they are white elephant. But if we do not have incinerators, then that we will be facing a huge problem of rubbish besieging the entire city. And he also talks about the administration being the kidnappers and Democrats being gatekeepers. I think he's just distorting the facts. The administration has the power to submit the proposals and is the power of legislators to decide whether to approve the funding application. And instead, the Democrats have been delaying the process by asking for a German debate, by doing a lot of many things to stop the item from being discussed. And they've been saying that the item is controversial and they don't want to talk about it. And that doesn't work because there are a lot of controversial items. You can support it or object to it. And it's inappropriate for you to use excuses to delay the process. It's in plain sight what is happening. And you can deny all you want, but it won't change the fact. For the benefit of civil servants and contract staff, do not delay any more. If you think that the incinerator should not be built and landfill should not be extended, object to it. Or you make proposals as to how our waste should be dealt with. And what you're doing harms the entire society, and you are actually hurting the people, just like what Wong Kwok-hing said. The Secretary, would you like to respond? No? We now move on to the fourth item, pay level survey. The Standing Committee has completed the PTS, the pay level survey, and they have made a recommendation to the Chief Executive on the 30th of October this year. Secretary, please. Once every 6 years, we will conduct a We will have the pay level survey conducted to ensure that there is comparable pay between the civil service and the private sector. On the 21st of February 2012, we informed the panel that there will be a pay level survey conducted. It will cover non-directorate civilian civil service grades. We have asked the Standing Commission, which is the Standing Commission on Civil Service Salaries and Conditions of Service, to conduct the survey because they are, first of all, a public body and they have experience in this regard. They have completed the survey and they have submitted a report to the CE on the 30th of October this year. At certain critical stages during the survey, they have consulted the staff. They have taken into account their views before making recommendation and submitting the report to the administration. After consulting civil servants, the Standing Commission is of the view that they will adopt the methodology adopted in the last PLS, and they have also adopted the broadly defined job family and job level method. And they have also decided to take the 1st of October last year as the survey reference date. They have collected pay data from 128 private sector organizations and matched private sector counterparts with civil service jobs, and they have also used the methodology in 2006. That is, apart from the basic pay, the bonus and other fringe benefits are also taken into account. And for civil service, they have also taken into account a number of other factors. Apart from the highest job level, the other 4 job levels receive a pay comparable to their counterparts in the private organization, that is the upper third quartile. For job level 5, their pay is lower by 8%.
Having considered the various factors, the Standing Commission recommends the following. That is, other relevant factors have been taken into account while adopting a holistic approach. It won't be applied mechanically. Well, for the job levels 1 to 4, there won't be any change to the salary of officers in such categories. And then for the job level 5 officers, the salary will receive an upward adjustment of 3% with effect from 1st of October 2014. That is the beginning of the month in which the Standing Commission submits the 2013 PLS report to the CE. We are now in the process of consulting the views of the staff associations. We will take their views into account. We'll also listen to your views, and then we will make recommendations to the administration, that is the Senior Council. I would like to declare interest. I'm a member of the Standing Commission, so I also took part in the survey of the 2013 PLS. So I'm not going to provide any comments. I will also refrain from voting if a vote is to be taken in this meeting. Wong Kwok-hing, Liu Chang, Martin Liu, Li Chak-yen, Yip Kin-jun, Emily Lau, and then Mrs. Regina Yip will be the order of members who speak. First of all, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 12th of November, a staff association wrote to the administration telling the SCS about their reaction to the views. I would like to tell you about the views of the Government Employees Association. Broadly speaking, they are in support of the recommendations in the report. But then they very much hope that upon completion of this survey, the methodology, the application, as well as the timing of the survey should be given a review. That is, for the PLS, they would like to look at the mechanism. They want to know if the mechanism itself can be reviewed, covering the points that I've just referred to. So I'll just see if the SCS would comment on this. And then the Government Employees Association has also said that for the pay trend survey conducted annually and the pay level survey conducted once every 6 years, we are talking about 2 surveys. For certain grades and ranks, sometimes we see an overlapping, and there may also be contradictions. And then the community may have misunderstanding about the 2 different surveys. Therefore, the GEA is of the view that perhaps the 2 surveys can be combined into one so as to avoid so much duplication. Moreover, for the PLS conducted once every 6 years, it is a mammoth task and it is very costly. Therefore, they just wonder if in the future the 2 surveys can be combined, streamlined, so as to cut the public expenditure. We can also avoid contradiction and overlapping. Secretary. Mr. Wong, if at all possible, please give us a copy of the submission from the Government Employees Association. Secretary, First of all, about the pay level survey, whether it should be conducted once every 6 years and whether there should be advance agreement on the methodologies of comparison. Well, after we have completed this round of exercise, we'll check if we need to carry out a review, and then we'll see if the Standing Commission will be invited to review the mechanism. But then that will be for sometime in the future. Now, the PLS and the PTS are for different purposes. For the pay trend survey, it covers a shorter period of time. It is done annually, and that's for the purpose of pay adjustments. So I'm sort of making a rough I'm referring to a sort of rough comparison between civil service pay and private sector pay. For pay level survey, it is different. We are talking about comparable ranks and jobs, and it asks for a greater degree of accuracy, and it is impossible to do it on a yearly basis, and therefore I think the idea to combine the two may not work. This is because the surveys have different purposes. The first is for a pay adjustment in the short term, and then the other one is about the comparison of the substance. So the first one is more like taking into account the inflation rate, and we want to look at the changes in the pay levels in the private sector. For the pay level, I think it's more about the pay levels themselves. Secretary, I hope you will note that for certain grades and ranks, the PLS and the PTS may have overlapping or contradictions. Chair, if you would like to get a copy of the written submission from the GEA, I'm going to hand it up to you. Thank you. Next, Martin Liu. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Chapter 5, Table 2 of the report, we have got 9 economic sectors. Please tell us about the criteria for having the 9 economic sectors, and what about the ratios? And then, according to the same table, that is Table 2 of Chapter 5, then about 16% of the organizations covered are from the economic sector of wholesale, retail, and import-export. I think the importance is getting lower, and in fact our industrial structure is getting more diversified. I just wonder if the administration would choose the organizations on the basis of their contributions to the GDP, and I think this will give us fair findings. Secretary, maybe I would like to defer to the Standing Commission. Yes, I'll try to answer this question. For Table 2, yes, there are 9 economic sectors. This is in accordance with the classification of the Census and Statistics Department. As to the organizations involved and as well as the economic sectors involved, well, private organizations join the survey on a voluntary basis. We have also engaged a consultant to collect the data from the private sector organizations. First of all, the consultant would draw up an invitation list. In 2012, a civil service related survey was carried out. At that time, about 400 organizations were invited, so the Standing Commission would adopt that as the basis. And then, in the course of this survey, some staff side members have recommended other organizations, so we took that into account as well. So altogether 400 plus organizations were invited. This is entirely voluntary. So among the 400 plus organizations, ultimately 128 provided data to us. As to their distribution, And on the basis of the economic sectors, we have given you a breakdown of the percentage. And then we checked with the Census and Statistics Department for the data from the third quarter of 2013, covering organizations employing more than 100 employees. We are told that the organizations here are quite representative. For wholesale, retail, and import-export sector referred to by Mr. Liu, for Q3 2013, for organizations employing more than 100 employees, that sector took up 19% of the total. On this occasion, 20 such organizations gave us data, and they accounted for 15.6% of all organizations being surveyed. So 15.6% vis-a-vis 19%, we believe 19.1%, it is believed that it is fine. What is the percentage of 19.1%? 19.1% of the organizations employ more than 100 employees in the entirety of Hong Kong are from this sector. What about looking at the GDP contribution? I'm afraid that this may have a distorting effect. So I want to know whether it is the opportune time to review the mechanism of the pay level survey. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Liu, for his question. As I have said, we have noted the proposals to review the mechanism, like the timing as well as the detailed arrangements. We have an open mind, and we'll take up the matter with the Standing Commission further. I don't think you should just swallow or take up everything suggested by the consultant. I think you should form your own independent view. P.S. When we started the pay level survey, I understand that the Standing Commission consultant took a look at the mechanism first before embarking on the survey. And the Standing Commission, in its report to the administration, has also said that in the light of the experiences gained in conducting the surveys, perhaps it is opportune time to review the mechanism to see what should be done next time. We will consult the stakeholders again, and then we will make a recommendation on this point to the CE Council. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen. Well, on my part, I just wonder whether we need to do it. Well, it is quite tight. Had it been more than 5%, then you have to resort to a pay cut. Now, let's imagine such a scenario. For one group, we have got a pay rise of 8% for some. Of course, you can't take that far. But then understand that for a particular job level, the pay difference is as much as 8%, and then the other one is 4%. So had it been adjusted upwards to 5%, that is 5% higher than the private sector pay, then you have to impose a pay cut. Now, for job levels 1 to 4, no pay rise, but for the remaining one, there is a pay rise. So for JL3, a difference of 4%. They will also want to raise it to 5% as well. For those with a negative figure, of course, they don't want to have a pay cut.
So once every 6 years, there will be a reshuffle. Some may see a pay cut. What are you supposed to do? Well, for trade union, of course, they don't want a pay cut. Okay, well, when there is a pay cut, you don't want it. But what about when there is a pay rise? You want it, so you want the best of both worlds? You're just creating conflict between the different job levels. People are already unhappy about the pay rise, proposed pay rise for those who are earning the most. We have a wealth gap here in Hong Kong. Why do you want to increase their pay? You say that is because their counterpart in the private sector it has a higher pay. But we're talking about a society that is disharmonious anyway. Why do we see this now? If you look at actually 29 of them are from the financial sector. You see that in this sector, the end of year bonus may be 6 months' pay. For those in the higher echelon, they may see a bonus of 6 months to 12 months. That's why the figure has been jacked up. And that's why I asked why there are so many organizations from the financing, insurance, and real estate. I know your logic. Well, it's because, first of all, it's on a voluntary basis, and secondly, companies from this sector are mostly large organizations, and Hong Kong relies heavily on the financial sector. I'm afraid that maybe in the next survey, 6 years later, there will be a pay cut, especially for those in medium to lower level. Well, unless the administration promise that there will never be a pay cut, then I'll be fine with it. But that is not the case. And this time, for job level 2, there is a close call. Let me refer to the table. Job level 2, there only a 4% discrepancy, so it's a close call. They nearly has a pay cut. So it's not about reviewing how it should be done. We should review whether it should be done or not. Well, I don't know how you will implement it. Maybe sometime, maybe 1st of April next year. Then for job level 5, they will all see a pay rise. I want to know about the details of the implementation, but my advice is that it's better that it's not done. Thank you for the question. For a number of points, I would defer to Ms. Ng. And in relation to the general points, whether it should be done, well, as you all know, that there is an established policy that there should be a comparison about comparability. And there are a number of surveys done where there is the pay trend level done annually. There is the once every 6 years pay level survey, and there is also one done every 3 years related to the starting salary survey. We want to find out whether civil service pay is comparable. Whether there should be an increase or not is not a mechanical exercise. But what about implementation? Say for job level 5, when are they going to see a pay rise? Or you have to wait for the second round. Next, Mr. Ip Kin Yun. 2 points. First, about the conflicts between the different job levels. I think it will only deteriorate. What we see is that if you earn a high pay, it will be easier for you to receive a pay rise. And if you earn a low pay, you may not see a pay rise as easily. And if the pay structure reflects the situation in the private sector, then for civil servants, they will see the same thing. This pay level survey is to narrow the difference between civil service pay and that in the private sector. But how do you achieve a balance or strike a balance? There is a point of contention. Yes, Well, you now propose a pay rise, but you still haven't dealt with the pay rise for civil servants this year. Well, back in about June or July, when there was discussion about NTNE development, we raised this point with the then chairman Hon WONG Kwok-hing, but the administration refused to budge. And in July, end of July, I asked the Bureau Secretary whether when we come back after the summer recess, the order will be changed. And the answer I got at that time was a no. But is it actually the case that it is so rigid that it cannot be changed? Now, say for example, there is a crash, and you still want to put the car behind the car that's crashed, knowing full well that there will be congestion. You need to feel the difficulties faced by the people and change the order. In the PWSC, the chairman wanted to change the order. However, the administration withdraw some of the items, say for example those related to education. So this job level 5 pay rise issue aside, we are more concerned about the pay rise of civil servants this year. Teachers don't know when they will actually receive their pay. I know that it's not a decision to be made only by the Secretary. I hope the Secretary will reflect our views to the CS4A and the CE. They should work on resolving the problem and not get bogged down by it. Secretary. First, about those that are of a higher rank, and those that is of a lower rank, or those that are senior, more junior. Well, we have to consider whether the pay can retain a talent. Say for example, but we are not rigid. Say for example, for job level 2, there was no proposal to cut their pay. We still use the 5% discrepancy, and for JL5, instead of an 8% increase, it's proposed to be 3% only. We have taken in consideration many factors. We have to strike a balance, and it's a delicate exercise. And we have taken into account the views of the staff. And as I said, that for important proposals, they should not be put aside simply because they are controversial. We hope that for the incinerator and landfill proposal, the FC will make a decision as soon as possible. We are not asking that to be put aside. We are asking for the order to be changed. Project of schools should be endorsed as soon as possible. Livelihood issues should be endorsed as possible before we deal with NTNE development and landfill and incinerator, because what you have done is not practical. Next, Ms. Emily Lau. I want to ask about the survey, especially when it comes to JL5. The Secretary said that their pay is 8% lower than the counterpart in the private sector. But we're talking about different employment terms. Civil servants are different from those working in the private sector, because if you stumble or make a mistake, you'll be fired. The higher the position you hold, the more precarious your situation is. If you cannot deliver, you'll be fired. Of course, some would like to see their pay reaching up to $7 or $8 million like their counterparts in the private sector. You simply can't make a comparison. Do you just compare the wage? Have you done any comparison with the employment terms? We use a general comparison. This is not a perfect survey, but we don't see any other options. As you know, that there needs to be some kind of adjustments in the civil service, but we need a mechanism. In the private sector, it's for the boss to decide, but we don't have such a mechanism in the civil service. So we have adopted a general comparison. It's not a detailed one, but a general one. And in this comparison, in this round of comparison, we are not comparing just the monetary amount. We have compared the terms of employment. Of course, there is higher stability in the civil service, but in the private sector, there are more flexibility. Say, for example, if you want to make an investment or own companies, you can. The Standing Commission, has taken a number of factors into account in the general survey. It's not perfect, but it's the best available. We want to treat the civil servants well. We want to keep them happy so that they do not leave. But we're talking about different employment terms. And there are more and more corruption cases. I don't know why the ICAC has taken so long to investigate into these cases. We're all very worried. On one hand, we would like you to urge the civil servants to be impartial in carrying out their duties. And you want civil service pay to catch up with the pay in the private sector. But for those receiving high wages, that we're talking about a huge figure. You simply can't let civil servants of that level to have their pay caught up with the private sector. Well, the Standing Commission proposed 3% instead of 8%. So you see that it's not 100% comparison. They have made adjustments. I will defer to the Secretary General, to the Permanent Secretary. The Standing Commission has conducted a comprehensive assessment before making recommendations. One of the factors is the inherent discrepancies and uniqueness of the civil service. The Standing Commission has made it clear that they are aware of the differences between the civil service and the private sector. They are aware of the difference in recruitment and employment terms. There are uniqueness in the civil service and in the private sector, and it's difficult to make that clear. The Standing Commission has said that these uniqueness may not be quantifiable, but in the application to the civilian civil service grades, they have taken into account the inherent difference and the uniqueness.
Mrs. Virginia Yip, I don't think I would agree with the idea of abandoning the surveys. Now, for the lower income class, as to how we should address the problem of the widening wealth gap, I think we need other policy initiatives. I don't think this can be achieved by not dealing with the pay difference between senior civil servants and the private sector counterparts. Now, Emily Lau has got a point. She said that civil servants are working in a way not directly comparable to, say, somebody selling jewelry. I just wonder if you can fine-tune the survey. Some non-government organizations work in a similar fashion, and they serve the public, like the Trade Development Council. Under the ordinance, they have this duty to promote the trade of Hong Kong as a whole. So they have such a vision and mission. Many statutory organizations share the same objective as the administration, that is for the public good, but then the pay is much higher than that in the civil service sector. So they have poached our civil servants, and then some have gone to the general chambers of commerce, and again the nature of the work is quite similar to that of public organizations, because they don't just work for one particular company. Now, in fact, currently all the CEOs of the 5 general chambers of commerce are former AOs. And then for the disciplined services, what about the Great Structural Review? I know such is not being done regularly. In 2008, there was an announcement to do it, and we are supposed to do it once every 20 years. Now, since 2008, we have seen a lot of changes, and the society is full of lots of challenges. As to the many issues raised last time, I think they're still outstanding. The disciplined services officers don't think that they have been addressed. So when are you going to carry out the Great Structural Review? Yes, I'll answer some of the questions, and then Ms. Ng will supplement. Now, for this survey, we do cover certain public organizations like the TDC, the Tourism Commission, as well as the Airport Authority. Regarded as private sector organizations and covered, yes. We want to know to what extent their pay levels are being affected by the government. If they are affected to a large extent, then they would not be covered. And then for others, when we find that their pay structure is totally different, then they will be covered. What about the SFC and the Hong Kong MA and Hospital Authority? For the Hospital Authority, we have carried out a consultation. Specifically, the response is that the HA should not be included because it is part of the public health sector. And in fact, the majority of the doctors work in the public healthcare sector. It is difficult to compare. So you will cover those organizations that are not having their pay levels affected by the government. Ms. Ng. When we selected the private sector organizations for comparison, one of the criteria was that they adjusted their pay didn't on the basis of the civil service pay. Otherwise, this would have a bearing on the findings. That's the first point. Second point is that among the 128 participating private sector organizations, we did include some of the less commercial organizations referred to by Mrs. Yip. Please refer to Annex E, which gives you, or Appendix E, which gives you the detailed list of organizations. Can I continue? Yes, please. For the wholesale retail sector, whether it is of a different nature from that of the government, Well, we just want to find out whether certain jobs in such companies are comparable with some civil service jobs. Say, for example, the business of wholesaling and retailing may not be similar to government work, but then they also have clerks, have accountants, so they are comparable. I hope I have answered Mrs. Yip's question. Thank you. Next, Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is said that the government has consulted the staff associations in relation to the findings, one being the GEA, the Government Employees Association. Let me read out from their comments. Now, after the findings have been announced or published, a lot of views have been received. This is because the pay trend survey and the pay level survey are such that they are confusing even to the civil servants, and then the public have also found it difficult to understand why we have got two occasions of pay rise in a single year. We believe that the pay trend survey alone would do the job. Now, for the pay level survey, it is very complicated. It's not easy to summarize the findings, and it will have a gap of 6 years. They just wondered whether we should keep the pay level survey. Now, I think they are able to point out the gist of the matter. That is, it is very complicated. It is difficult to understand. Now, for JL2, it is 104%, but then if you go to the details, then it should be 104.316%. So even among civil servants, they find it confusing as to why in a single year there were two surveys, so they just doubted whether it was necessary. It's very difficult to come to any specific conclusion. In that case, then the public would accuse the administration of raising the pay but never cutting the pay of the civil servants. So we just wonder whether it should be kept. And then for job level 1, we are covering those receiving $9,930 to $18,000. So they are sort of the grassroots. And then I think we get the comparisons from the contracted out service employees. So the pay levels would just go down in a cycle. So for job levels 1 and 2, you will always get the result that the pay levels are too high. Now, for the civil servants and the members of the public, it seems that it is quite messy. So I'm wondering if you want to carry out a review. And then in terms of implementation, for the job level 5, it is said that they should get a 5% pay rise. Are you going to do that? Well, I think similar questions have already been asked. Let me explain that the PTS and the PLS are totally different surveys. They have their own objectives and the methodologies are not the same. So if you say that we should combine the two into one, I don't think it is realistic. As to the pay level survey, whether it should be improved upon a review in the future, I think something for the future, say for example the methodology and the frequency, such matters could certainly be studied again. For the Standing Commission, when we invite the Standing Commission to look at the matter, I don't think they will try to be mechanical. They won't say that, well, there is a difference of 0.1% and so there should be a 0.1% pay adjustment. They would also consult the stakeholders first before coming up with recommendations. So we don't necessarily have the mechanical pay adjustments as you think. Now, for the frontline employees, usually the perception is that they have a pay level higher than that in the private sector. But then from this exercise, you can see that probably owing to the minimum wage policy, the private sector pay has been given a boost, and so the civil service pay and the private sector pay are quite comparable. 3 minutes, please. Mr. Chairman, if I may find out more from you. All employees would like to get a pay rise, whether they are in the upper band, middle band, or the lower band. Now, there was a question as to whether we shouldn't allow a pay rise for the upper band officers. For us to resolve the problem of wealth gap, I think we should resort to other measures, in particular the taxation route. Even the upper band officers would also expect a pay adjustment. Now, in this exercise, it is found that the higher level or more senior officers they have their pay lower than that in the private sector. For the non-economic sectors, I understand that you have got relatively more data from this sector, that is the financing sector. Would it be because they usually enjoy very handsome bonuses and so there is this effect? And then the Bureau has also said that for the mechanism itself, you are going to conduct a review and you want to sort of rationalize it. I want to know when you are going to come up with recommendations to improve the mechanism. So timetable, you have promised to do it, but how much longer do we have to wait? Another 6 years, or would it be available next year? 2 questions for the time being. Secretary, the question about financing sector, I would defer to Ms. Ng. As to the review, we haven't got a timetable. Basically, we have to await the conclusion to this exercise. We're still in the process of consultation, and then we'll go to the Senior Council. Should there be a need to make adjustments, we have to come back to the electrical. But initially speaking, we have talked to the stakeholders. We are interested to carry out a review, but we haven't got a concrete timetable. We won't wait until June next year. If we are to embark on it, we will certainly follow this up once we have got a conclusion on this matter. And then I remember Mr. Tang has this question before, that is how this is going to be applied. Of course, we have to go back to the Senior Council once we've got the recommendations, and then we need to look at the views of the Standing Committee for the disciplined services as well as the Standing Commission for Directorate staff. So we will come back with an overall view. Maybe the point about the financing sector, I defer it to Ms. Ng. Well, Mr. Kwok is concerned about the impact of the financing sector. I just want to point out that we want to use a scientific methodology so that we can objectively and truthfully reflect the private sector pay. So if a particular sector, if a particular company, as far as pay increases are concerned, if they are being generous or frugal or cautious, well, I don't think that forms part of our criteria. Therefore, their pay policy will not be a decisive factor on whether we should extend our invitation or not, because we want to be objective and truthful in reflecting the data in the private sector, so that the Standing Commission can come up with a recommendation for the administration concerning the pay levels.
I have another question. When it comes to sending out invitation, you have sent out 447 invitations, but the response rate is only 100 or so organizations. It's done on a voluntary basis. Is it the case that you have used all the information received because the number is low, or is it the case that you are going to maybe take some organizations out, or take some trades out? In relation to data collection, it's done by a professional consultancy. The consultancy has received information about information agreed upon by the Standing Commission and staff consultative council. So it's not arbitrary. It's done based on some objective criteria. There are some outliers. Senior consultants of the consultancy will view them and consider whether they meet the selection criteria. We have Lee Chuk-yen, Ip Kin-yun, and another member. 3 minutes each, please. My first question is quite academic. It's just out of interest, because I want to know about the private sector. Well, there are many parts to a remuneration: basic pay, bonus, and end-of-year pay. Have you broken down the data? Say, for example, for private sector, what is the basic wage, and how much is the bonus, and how much is the end-of-year pay? And for Table 4. Well, you have broken down for the different job levels the number of organizations that provided data. There are altogether 128 organizations, but for JL5, the number of organizations providing data seems to be quite small. Is it the case that for some organizations they have provided information for different job levels? Or is it the case that, say, for finance sector, it covers all job levels, whereas for some other sectors, it may not cover JL5? You don't have to give me an answer now. You may give me the information after the meeting, because it's just out of interest. It's an academic question. And I have a number of questions. First, when the 3% will be implemented? And 2, it seems to me from what the Secretary said that the whole purpose is to attract talent. When it comes to pay adjustments, manpower, and morale, and he very often will tell us about the 3 no's. No increase in resources, no increase in manpower. Say, for example, for lifeguards, you told me that, and I would like to hear more in a special meeting. And you also told me that there is for some there is no difficulty in attracting and retaining talent. Is it the case that there is difficulty in recruitment and retaining talent for JL5? That's why you need to change their pay? It seems that your logic has changed. There is no problem with recruitment and retaining talent, and yet you propose a pay rise. So what happens to what you told me in relation to other ranks and grades? Well, first about the academic question, I will give you the information afterwards. For the second question, we will collect your views, and if there is any, we will reflect to the EXCO. And so far, there is no, and at this stage, there is no timetable. And of course, if there is any change, if we go to the FC, we will revert to you as soon as possible. In relation to the mechanism, we've had a lot of discussions with the staff. They accept this mechanism. The Standing Commission make recommendations based on this mechanism. When it comes to manpower, well, and many other aspects, if we want to change the grade structure, it cannot be done arbitrarily. There should be some problems in the first place, say for example difficulties in recruitment or significant changes. If there is no change, then we will stick to the 3 no's. Yes, of course, the staff would like their terms of employment and wage changed. But if there is a financial implication and implication on manpower, then we need to take into account whether it can be fully justified. Next, Mr. Kim Yun, 3 minutes. In the education sector, there is a grade. Is the assistant principal in a secondary school. I'm sure the permanent secretary is well aware of this. Well, in this survey, it's found that this grade belongs to JL4. But for Principal 1, they belong to JL5. Principal 1 and Principal 2 have very similar job duties. Its only difference is that the number of classes they supervise. However, in this exercise, they receive different treatment. I would like to say for Principal Class 2, it's for a smaller school, but not that much smaller. It's a difference of 23 classes and 24 classes. And there are many problems with the pay structure of this. If a teacher is promoted to Principal Class 1, all of a sudden his pay will be much higher than Principal Class 2. So I want to know whether there is room for improvement or adjustment when it comes to Principal Class 2. For the application to the education sector, we take into account the respective pay scale. We know that teachers and principals have a pay scale that is more or less the same as that of the civil servants, and we have to consider whether this adjustment will apply to teachers and principals. This survey is not to deal with certain grades in the private sector. I'm afraid that this may have to be dealt with by the Education Bureau. This is not limited to government schools, to subvented schools as well. But for government school, it's part of the civil service. But whether it is a government school or not, you need to look into this issue. Next, Mrs. Virginia Ip. Just a simple question. The organizations. Well, you include some public bodies. How come you did not include the Monetary Authority and the SFC? And there are also some trade associations that are not included. And in relation to the GSR, the Grace Structure Review, when will it start? GSR, there is an established policy. It's not done regularly. There are three considerations. First, the significant change in the grade structure, and there are difficulties in recruitment and retainment of talent, and these will trigger a GSR. And at this stage, we have yet to see these changes. We will liaise closely with the Security Bureau and the police, and if there are some changes, we may consider that. In relation to the 128 organizations, they are companies that volunteered to participate. At the time of sending our invitation, we contacted 447 organizations. We don't have a list of the organizations. We might have invited the organizations Mrs. Yip mentioned. It's just that for some reason they did not participate. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan, only 2 minutes. We're talking about JL5. There is a chance that their pay will be adjusted. But what about public bodies? What is the relationship between that and the civil service? Well, the hospital authority has delinked itself from the civil service, so is universities. They may lose talents as a result, and you will not give them resources to increase pay. And if they have difficulties in recruitment and they see that they can't retain talent, they may ask you for resources, and it will be to your benefit to give them resources to increase their pay. Because I do something related to these public bodies, because the adjustments under this proposal will have an impact on public bodies. We're still looking into it. The logic is that for subvented organizations, if the pay scale is linked with the civil service, then we will consider that. But if they are delinked, their pay in general is higher than that of civil servants. So I think in the end we have to consider whether the pay of the public body is linked with that of the civil service. We've spent a lot of time in this item. The last item is any other business. If there are no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.